What you see in the screen is a 6,000 years old cave painting located in Nolangi Rock, one of the first human sites of the Australian continent. It constitutes one of the most ancient representations of the human cardiovascular system. According to local mythology, in the dream times, Namoniac, the ancestral creator, made a journey through this region along his sister, and using one feather of her headdress, he planted the holy rock that has served as support to this and other pictographic works made by ancestral people of the region during the last 20,000 years. As you see, painting was the only cardiac image technique available in ancient times, and in spite of how much the world has changed since, we, present cardiologists, keep drawing hearts. Hello, welcome to Cardio Flash College, a place to learn cardiology with flash animations. As you know, in this channel we try to represent with drawings the complex and fascinating world of the cardiology, with the objective to ease the process of academic formation. However, we are not the first to do it, because the heart has been the object of study and devotion since the beginning of time. The visual perception of its beats and its unremovable connection with emotions have motivated the interest of an uncountable amount of people to unravel its mysteries and immortalize in an image its functioning. This is why these are 5 images: mitral insufficiency. Number 1. As you know, the chest X-ray can give us relevant information in patients with certain cardiopathies, such as the mitral insufficiency. In this way, a severe mitral insufficiency can produce, radiologically speaking, an increase of the heart shape because the dilation of the heart cavities is a frequent phenomenon of the disease. In this case, it seems probable that the left cavities are dilated because there are radiological data that suggests so. These are, for example, the convexity of the left edge of the heart shape and the proximity of the posterior edge of the left ventricle with regard of the spinal column. Number 2. As you have seen in the opening video of this section, catheterization of the left ventricle allows us to evaluate the morphology and functioning of this cavity and its related structures, such as the mitral valve. In this way, the left ventriculography allows us to estimate the severity of the mitral insufficiency according to the magnitude of the regurgitated contrast jet and the size of the left atrium. Number 3. The right heart catheterism is a test that allows us to measure different hemodynamic parameters corresponding to the pulmonary arterial system and the right cavities of the heart. This is made by a balloon catheter that gets into the right atrium coming from the superior cava vein or the inferior one. Often, as in this case, a simultaneous measure of the left ventricle pressures can be made. Notice how the curve of pressure obtained in the right cavities changes according to the structures the balloon catheter is going through. We know we are in the right atrium when we identify the characteristic pattern of the venous pulse, composed by an A wave, the X sinus, the B wave, and the Y sinus. Posteriorly, we detect the arrival of the balloon catheter into the right ventricle when the curve of pressure changes into a clear pattern of systole and diastole, coinciding this last with the values previously registered inside the right atrium. Regarding the pulmonary artery, we can say that in absence of valvular stenosis, the pulmonary artery usually presents a systolic pressure comparable to the one of the right ventricle, but the diastolic pressure must be higher. Finding this increase of pressure with the catheter allows us to know that we are in the pulmonary artery. Finally, when the balloon catheter impacts with the most distal segments of the pulmonary arterial system, it is possible to isolate and register the pulmonary capillary wedge pressure. This is usually a reflex of the pressures of the left atrium, and so we can find the typical pattern of the venous pulse previously described in the right atrium. In this way, it is possible to identify a severe mitral insufficiency when there is an increase of the B wave, because this reflects how the pressure of the left atrium increases as a direct consequence of the mitral regurgitation jet occurred during ventricular systole. Number 4. The transthoracic echocardiography is the most used diagnostic tool for the study and following of the mitral insufficiency, because it not only allows us to estimate the severity of it, but many times it even allows us to identify the mechanisms and the etiology of the valvular problem. As you can see, in the parasternal long axis view, it is evident that the mitral valves do not coapt properly, generating an eccentric jet of mitral insufficiency and of great magnitude that is visible with the Doppler color function. Different projections allow us to evaluate the same phenomenon from different perspectives. For example, the parasternal short axis view shows us all the festoons of the mitral valves simultaneously, which is useful in the study of the location and the mechanisms of the mitral insufficiency. This jet has a holosystolic character, travels along the entire lateral wall of the left atrium, describing a clear coanda effect, and gets to the posterior wall of the severely dilated left atrium. It is also important to point out that the apical views allow us to evaluate the size and functioning of the left ventricle, giving very relevant information for the study of the valvulopathy. In this case, the left ventricle has a normal size, ejection fraction is conserved, and there are no alterations on segmental contractility. Finally, although the severity of the mitral insufficiency must be estimated by objective parameters such as the regurgitant volume, the vena contracta, or the effective area of the regurgitant hole, today we will focus on the visual aspect of it, because all of that information will be used in another video. In this way, with all this available information, we can say, without fear of making a mistake, that there is an organic type of severe mitral insufficiency, due to deficient coaptation of the valves and improbable relation with mitral fibroelastic degeneration, although this should be confirmed. Number 5. The transesophageal echocardiography is an essential diagnostic tool for the pre-surgical study of the mitral insufficiency, because the obtained images have a greater resolution compared with the ones in the transthoracic register. As you can see, transesophageal probe allows us to see the heart from the left atrium, so the jet of mitral insufficiency does not move away, but approaches. An interesting characteristic of the test is that it allows us to evaluate a determined area of the heart from two orthogonal projections simultaneously. In this case, the mid-esophageal two-chamber plane to the left and the mid-esophageal long axis view to the right. This allows us to evaluate the mitral valve and the insufficiency jet from different perspectives. Finally, for if it was not enough, one of the advantages of the transesophageal echocardiography is that we can make a three-dimensional reconstruction of the mitral valve with the objective of improving its study. In this case, we can see the mitral valve from the surgeon's perspective, which means from the left atrium. In this way, we can orientate by identifying different anatomical structures, such as, for example, the aorta on the top part, or the left atrial appendage on the lateral part. This way, we can say that the coaptation defect mainly occurs at the level of A2P2, which, added to the rest of the available information, allows us to conclude that the mechanism of the valvular insufficiency will be the fibroelastic degeneration of the valvular system. As you can see, the heart image is fundamental in the study of the mitral insufficiency, and even though we could expose more detailed information of these and other tests, it is not possible because our time is over. It has been all for today in Cardio Flash College. We hope you liked the video. If so, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. We'll see you in the next class. And remember, Don't come late. Bye.